Почитуван председател Pendarovski, Your Excellencies, Honorable Rector Bojadziev, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am exceptionally honored this evening to welcome you to this book launch, which is meant not only as a way of promoting a recent scientific volume published by the eminent London publisher Palgrave Macmillan, but even more so as a possibility of reflecting on the nearly 33 years of the independent Macedonian state. Professor Robert Hudson and I have entitled this book Macedonia's Long Transition, to suggest, somewhat ironically, that the Euro-Atlantic integration of our country has not been entirely completed. Then again, 3 decades are not a terribly long period for an independent state to realize its full potential. Having that in mind, we have invited 9 other Macedonian scholars from various backgrounds and different universities to write separate chapters on multifarious aspects of the political, economic, social and cultural history of Macedonia. I would like to mention them and to thank them for their contribution. Most of them are here with us this evening. Stevo Pendarovski, who meanwhile became president, Židas Daskalovski, Marjan Bojadziev, Hurija Bazi Alili, Nenad Markovic, who meanwhile became an advisor to the president.
There is great potential.
Vladimir, who ran as a presidential rival to Pendarovski. Marina Andeva, Loreta Georgievska-Yakovleva, and Ognjen Vangelov. Some of them were invited to write their first drafts some 5 or 6 years ago. And later on, they added some updates because we kept editing the book to reflect the most recent important episodes, including the NATO membership, the change of the government, and the most recent issue with Bulgaria. Eventually, we are pleased that this volume gives a state-of-the-art scientific perspective on the most defining developments in the recent history of our country. It would not have been possible to see the end result of this effort without the unwavering support from my university, and in particular, the person who inspires with great leadership and enduring trust. Therefore, please allow me to invite Professor Marjan Bojadziev, Rector of University American College Skopje, to say a word of welcome on behalf of the organizers of this event. Please.
Thank you for nice words, Professor Dodovski, President Pendarovski, respected Ambassador Excellencies, dear ladies and gentlemen. Macedonia will be celebrating 33 years of independence in September this year. And back in 1996, I was managing a small savings bank, and we had audit from the central bank. And in those days, there was some mission from IMF or World Bank. There was one American guy who was assisting them in technical knowledge, and asking, how do you see Macedonia, the economy, prospects in the future? He says, well, it will take at least 3 generations to become a normal country. So, well, what is generation? So, well, generation is 20 years, which means that we have 27 more years to go, unfortunately. So, with these metrics, we are somewhere in the middle of this path towards a better future. And if we need to look back what we've done in the last 33 years, we can always say is that we haven't done enough. Basically, our generation really built independent state, but didn't manage to develop. if you compare what our predecessors have done, 1945, 1975, in 30 years, moving the country from rural to mid-income industrialized country, then our results are not good enough. Especially if you compare to our former countrymen, Slovenians and Croats, who are now became the first world countries. In the last 30 years, Poland has grown their GDP 10 times, Slovakia 9 times, Czech Republic 8, also 9 times, Hungary 6.5, and we've multiplied only 3 times. Our average growth rate is 1.67 or something annually, which is everything below 3% is not enough to need something seriously. And of course, we've done our many good things, many mistakes, and also I would also mention in this situation that Europe has also made its mistakes by putting us, permanently keeping us in the lobby, being the only country which has the status of, let's call this, candidate without negotiation for exactly 19 years. So, of course, we are the elected officials who will solve these issues, and I'm optimistic that very soon Macedonia will move fast forward on this path forward. We, as American College, as a university, I think that we are trying to offer the best of European and American education. We managed to build our school as the best private university, as the second best research university, and as a part of these efforts, we have this publication today with Professor Robert Hudson and Dodovski as editors, and of course our co-authors from American College, Marjan, Marija, Alain, and of course our president, Stevo Pendarovski. This book is here to suggest that we as a university. Madam Minister, please join us in the first row. Welcome. Thank you for coming. So this book is here to suggest that we try to make impact in the society. We believe that our job is to make our students better individuals, and that they will make better organizations, and eventually all together will build a better society. And most likely 30 years from now, and these 60 years will be due, I won't be here to speak, someone else will be, but I hope that there will be a book, Macedonian long transitions towards becoming a first world country. So thank you to the authors for this fantastic publication.
Thank you, Rector Prof. Let me also tell you a very brief personal story. In 1991, I was an exchange student selected to complete my final year of high school in the United States. I went there with a Yugoslav passport. A year later, I came back in Macedonia, which meanwhile had become independent. A new democratic system was being established, and despite the economic hardship of my student life, I was told to believe that the country had a bright future. As a citizen, I was also witness to all the internal struggles, as well as to the hope that the so-called transitional period will be over eventually. And also that my generation, not some future generation, will see the country as a full-fledged member of the European Union. In many respects, this book is a story about the achievements and setbacks, the struggles and hopes of sustaining Macedonia's present and future. We have invited this evening an experienced man of diplomacy and a good friend in Macedonia to share with us his views about this book and more generally his reflections on the prospects ahead of us. His Excellency, Ambassador Alain, is knowledgeable of our recent history because he participated in some of the most important episodes himself. In 2001 and 2002, he acted as the European Union Special Representative to Skopje. And in particular, he was involved in the negotiations right after the signing of the Ohrid Framework Agreement. Later on, of course, he held several positions in the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs and served as ambassador of France to Madagascar and to Italy. Then he served as Under-Secretary General for Peacekeeping Operations at the United Nations. And he also served as a Secretary General of the European External Action Service between March 2015 and August 2016. Votre Excellence, Monsieur le Roi, je tiens à vous remercier d'être parmi nous ce soir et d'avoir accepté de parler de notre livre, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup, cher professeur. Mr. President Pendarovski, the Minister, the Rector, the Ambassadors, colleagues, friends, dear friends. Let me tell you first how glad I am to be back in Macedonia. Last time I was at Skopje, it was 2 years ago at the Prespa Forum, but I'm always glad to be back, and this time in Skopje, so thank you. Many thanks for this invitation. And above all, congratulations for the book that you, together with Professor Hudson, you have put together with so many different writers, both academics, politicians, Macedonian, Albanian, and various angles. I was very interested in reading the book, and I will make some comments on the book and on the situation with my point of view. I said my point of view because I'm now a retired diplomat. I don't have any official mandate. I'm no more representing the EU, no more representing France. Just I speak as a French citizen, a dear and sincere friend of your beautiful country. So this book for me comes at a very good time, and because there are clearly not enough books and enough knowledge about the recent history of Macedonia, especially in English or in foreign language, not in Macedonian language. I think the last book on the English language was in 2008, something like that. So it's very important to have a clear, precise knowledge of what happened in the last 30 years of Macedonia, with views from different writers with different views, sometimes contradictory, but I must say it's shown of a lively democracy and to give food for thought for so many people in Macedonia, in North Macedonia, and also in Europe, of course, for all those who are able to include the English. So thank you very much for this initiative, both Professor Dodovski and Professor Hudson. And I must say, interesting, because sometimes the book is rather critical towards actors or towards institutions in this country. But again, it's a good significance of democracy, a vibrant democracy in this country. We have freedom of expression, we can express, and to be informed electors, informed citizens. That's absolutely clear. And of course, there's what you said, the long transition, the so-called long transition from Macedonia since independence. It's clearly very important to know that this recent past, to understand the present and to anticipate the future. At the same time, this book is covering a lot of subjects, from, of course, political, but also economy, sociology, migration movements, privatization process. So I will not comment on this point, of course, that's known by many people here, but I think it's very useful to have a deep, precise knowledge by distinguished experts on this issue. And of course, many chapters of this book refers to the difficulties, the challenges, that the blockage that Macedonia has been seeing since independence and various capacities. And this is of course true that there have been many challenges and many setbacks. But at the same time, for me, I want to insist on the successes and the challenges that Macedonia has been able to overcome during these last 30 years, and at least the period that we're doing the best. For me, they are not sufficiently known and not sufficiently known for the European Union. I think that the courage that Macedonia was able to show in the various occasions is not sufficiently known, so I'm glad that we refer to it, and I want to insist on that myself today. Maybe if I start from the beginning, I remember I used the sentence of President Pendarovski in the book at the beginning, at the succession of Yugoslavia. compared to what happened in Croatia, even in Slovenia, or of course in Bosnia. At the time, there was no oasis of peace, to use this expression. That's first achievement. Second, of course, at this achievement, the first country to sign the Stabilization Association Agreement on 9 April 2001 was a very important achievement. Macedonia was the first. And then I would like to also remind that Macedonia was the first to get the candidate status in 2005. And for me, I want to illustrate that, especially when I see Madame Shkirinska here with us, that it was quite an achievement to have 4 years after the conflict, to have Macedonia to be accepted as a candidate status. It means a lot of technical work, and it was very impressive, the work that was done in the Ministry for European Integration and the Ministry of Madame Shkirinska. It shows for me, and it gives a lot for me for the future. The way 3 years after the very deep conflict, Macedonia was able to show to Europe that they were serious and had made all the technical work to be prepared to get this status. For me, gives a lot of optimism for the day the negotiation will finally start between the EU and Macedonia. I'm sure you will have within your administration, within your ministry, the relevant capacity to go very quick, rapidly on the various chapters of the European Union. What happened at that time was, I think, it's very important for today. Second, of course, what the achievements, the challenges we had. We all know what happened, of course, in the European Union, the debt and the Kosovo crisis, and the 360,000 refugees from Kosovo, which represented 17% of the population coming as refugees. We were able to overcome that, of course, also. But then, maybe you allow me to be a bit more precise on what happened during the conflict in 2001, and president at the time in the country following Mr. François Léotard. Late François Léotard, who died a few months ago. We all know that the conflict could have been as severe as in the neighboring country. It could have been a very bloody war. And I said, thanks to the help of EU, Mr. Solana, NATO, Mr. Robertson, and the facilitation both from the EU and the US, Jim Bardew especially, the conflict was overcome. But for me, what I want to say, yes, we all remember there was the EU, NATO, and the US to help, but also I said in my own life how the Macedonian institution worked at that time. I'm sure that President Pendarovski will remember there were several meetings in the office of the great President Dodovski, with the leaders of the 4 main parties, both Macedonian and Albanian, in a very intense situation. And I've seen, I was a witness in Canada, that the institution worked. They were able, even in a very intense situation, to find solution day by day on this. It was the institution, it was not the foreigners who were doing the job, it was the Macedonian institution who were working. And then for me, also I remember that, yes, for me, and again, President Vladimir, I'm sure we remember, the day the conflict was over, it was when the institution, it means the Macedonian parliament, adopted, finally, after many difficulties in the negotiation, adopted the amendment to the constitution to refer to the Agreed Framework Agreement. And I still, I must say, have a picture in my office of President Tchaikovsky raising his glass of champagne together with President Pendarovski and Dodovski, when we were watching on TV what was happening in the parliament to the body. It was for me the day of the clearly end of the potential war. That ended for me, again, it was within parliament, so a clear Macedonian institution. When I see it, we refer to that sometimes there are not enough trust in institution. I've been witnessing that the institution in Macedonia, even in a more difficult crisis, were able to function at the right level of a normal democracy. And to just to conclude on this, about the Agreed Framework Agreement, I will always quote Benjamin Franklin, who said, there was never a good war, and there was never a bad peace. I think the way this conflict ended is a good example of this. Then, just to put several achievements, but I will go quick because I know everyone. The Prespa Agreement is, of course, a great achievement and showing courage by this country. So, even after that, the Agreement, of course. the friendship agreement with Bulgaria, so I'll go quick, everyone knows that very well. And of course, NATO accession in 2020 was a clear reward for the Prespa Agreement. And yes, and even these days, I've seen that the agreement between the Serbian Orthodox Church and the Orthodox Church. So many successes, so many achievements for this country, but for me it's important to underline them when we see some frustration. And because I hear, especially I arrived yesterday, I think, and here since yesterday, I hear so much skepticism about the EU, some disappointment, all that achievement without any reward, without any success. I hear that more and more, and then the rate of EU support is decreasing in this country, maybe from 76 to something like 60 or something like that. I hear that, of course. But I'm here to remind you how the EU is keen to have this enlargement to be completed and to be completed with Macedonia. Let me quote the last European Council, so the head statement of 15 December. I quote, the European Council underlines that enlargement is a geostrategic investment in peace, security, stability and prosperity. It's a driver for improving the economic and social conditions of European citizens, reducing disparity between countries. So it's clear that EU, especially, I would say, especially after the Ukraine crisis, when there is some tension within Europe and the willingness of Europe to be stronger and to have with both the neighboring countries, especially the Balkans countries, need to remain higher. And one other example was happened in the summit last week here, on 22nd January here, with the leaders of the Western Balkans, the 6 Western Balkans countries, with again confirmation by the EU of the growth plan of 6 billion euro, with the reform and the growth facility to be adopted. I think that's another example, and I must say I was very pleased with the statement by the 6 leaders welcoming that, and I didn't see any real skepticism in the statement. The statement was skepticism. Yes, we want the enlargement, and we are ready to do reform for that, and the EU side, of course, is also on this line. Of course, I will not forget the so-called Bulgarian veto, and when I will see that, again, I quote the last, I know that we give many comments as to the European Council statement on 15 December, I quote it again. The EU is ready to complete the opening phase of the accession negotiation with North Macedonia as soon as it has implemented its commitment to complete the constitutional changes as referred in the Council conclusion in line with its internal procedure. So I will not comment anymore. That's the EU position. It's very clear what both is the willingness to enlarge and what should be done by the country leaders. And maybe on the spirit of compromise, I would say again, what's happened this country has been able to overcome many obstacles with compromises. Prespa Agreement is one of them. Of course, that now everyone understands that this agreement was important. Same for the Real Framework Agreement, compromise. Yeah, it was heavily criticized, and now it's seen that, despite it still sometimes criticized, that it has brought peace and clear coexistence in this country. So there are many, but and maybe I will conclude with some of these challenges which remain very much in this country. They will go very quick. The first challenge, but I will not comment because we are soon in the electoral period. I will just say, first challenge is to have some free and fair elections. I will not comment further. It's for your citizens. Second, for me, a challenge to have North Macedonia better known abroad, especially within the EU. And for that, the book, I say, is very important. In this, it could be read by many people to see where the achievements, the difficulty and the achievements, and the obstacles overcome by Macedonia. I think it's very important. By the way, I think also, if I am advised, to have more tourism here. We have such a beautiful country, and it's sad that there are not enough French tourists and others. I've seen now Croatia, even Albania and Montenegro are developing a tourism. I'm sure there's plenty of potential also for tourism here in this country. Challenges, of course, we are well known by everyone here, the education of the brain drain, we all know that. We see so many, it's benefiting very much for the EU member states, for Germany, for Austria, and also even for France, that it's clear that you engineer, your construction workers should be much more useful here than they are in our country, same for the doctors and nurses. And I understand and discussed with several that it's not only a question of paying, not only a question of salaries, it's a question of condition of living, merit-based career. So I'm sure that is well known by everyone. And the last point as the Chandler one mentioned, of course, it is well known, and the book referred to it quite a lot, is the question of the trust towards the institution in this country. That is probably one of the biggest issues. It's clear that there are some problem of trust between political parties, between some institutions, and towards the justice system. But one more time, I refer to what I saw myself with our eyes, even in the more political practice, when institutions were able to function and to end the conflict. And I'm sure this institution will be able to overcome all these challenges. Of course, it's a big task for your leaders, but I have full trust in them. It's right to conclude, I would say, I would very much remain finding that I see a lot of skepticism today in this country, but I myself remain very optimistic for this country. I know very much the potential. I know I've met so many people during that time, and after that, so many young people who still love their country, have trust in the capacity of this country. The last hurdle now is this obstacle to start the negotiations in the EU. I'm sure that there will be ways to overcome this last obstacle. As I said, from the EU side, it's clear that we want to have the EU Macedonia part of the family. And I'd like to thank you again for this invitation, and thank you again for this book, which in our opinion will be grateful for everyone. I'm sure it's a very sincere book. I also sometimes say contradictory, but that's very, very useful to have it. Thank you again, Professor Dodovski, for the invitation. I hope now you will hear the Professor Hudson speak about the book. But for me to conclude, I would like to say one more time, a long life to this beautiful country, and I hope very soon, in the near future, I know Charles Michel mentioned 2030, nobody knows about the date, but I'm sure in the near future, North Macedonia will be part of the European family, and I will be your ambassador to try to continue to work on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being with us and for your speech this evening. Well, had I more time, I would have told you the secret story of Professor Hudson's falling in love with the Balkan region. It's called wine and cuisine, among other things. But suffice it to say, however, that after studying at the School of Slavonic Studies at University College London, he went on a graduate scholarship to Sarajevo, and later on served in 6 OSCE missions, including those in Kosovo and in Serbia. In 1995, Professor Hudson became an EU Jean Monnet Scholar, and in the following year he was made a Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. For the past decade, he has dedicated much of his time to researching Macedonian history. We had the pleasure of bestowing upon him the title of Professor Honoris Causa at the University of American College Skopje in 2022. Also, as good friends, we have been exploring various corners of our beautiful country. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to ask Professor Hudson to tell us briefly about how this book came about and how he, as the main editor, sees its significance. Please go on.
Thank you, first of all, Your Excellency. Thank you, Alain, for your kind words. You mentioned wine and cuisine. You could perhaps also mention music.
That follows.
That's important. Mr. President, Honourable Ministers, Your Excellencies, Honourable Rector, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me very great pleasure to be here in this remarkable building tonight. It's not the first time I've been here. And also I'm really delighted to be back in Skopje, to be back in Macedonia, a country which I've really grown to love over the last 12, 13 years. My aim tonight is first of all to explain how this book came together, then to reflect on its significance to the regional studies of Southeast Europe and the Balkans, and the Western Balkans in particular, as well as on the New Eastern Europe and West. And I'll do that very briefly. First of all, I should say that the seed of Macedonia's long transition was first sown in the year of 2015, following the paper that had been delivered by a then certain Dr. Stevo Pendarovski at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the then Republic of Macedonia and Skopje. And this was on the 4th of December 2014. The event was a conference held in honour of our colleague, the late Professor Dr. Gaspar Biro. And this led to my contacting Professor Dodovski with a view to reflecting on the long transition that had been taking place in this country by comparison with the seemingly swifter transitions of the other post-socialist states in Eastern and Central Europe, and especially those that had joined the European Union. Ivan and I also wanted to provide an updated representation of the developments by focusing on more recent events since about 2010, thereby building on some of the excellent scholarship of previous publications by authors such as James Pettifer, John Phillips, Peter Poulton, who you know, Andrew Rossos, and others. But the one thing you notice about their publications is they were produced and published between 2001 and 2008. And Rossos' book was the last book. I was in touch with Rossos when the first book we were together. And so that was one thing. We wanted to bring forward a book that was really up to date and bring it right up to the date of publication to 2020 to 2023 period. The other thing was, of course, there was a whole plethora of books on other post-Yugoslav states, on Serbia particularly, Bosnia and Croatia, and there are a lot of books concentrating on the wartime period and the aftermath. In fact, one of my own volumes had been called Resolving UACS as a State. So we wanted to bring Macedonia forward. It was felt that there was a need to bring knowledge of Macedonia to the English-speaking world. But it did take a long time to produce. I said 2015, because it's only just been published in April 2023. So you might say, why? Well, of course, we became the victims of history. And this is one of the problems when you're writing the history of the present, as we call it now, not contemporary history necessarily, but the history of the present. Histoire indirecte, histoire vécue. The problem is, you become a victim of your own writing. And that's what happened to us. So I asked the various writers, I apologise to you for the long time it's taken for this book to be published, but I'm so glad that we took that time. Because if you think of the events that befell Macedonia and indeed Europe at the time, I won't go into the European ones, but look, it was the naming dispute with Greece, the wiretapping scandal, the colourful revolution, the impact of migration along the Balkan route, Bloody Thursday, the change of government to Zaire, the Prespa Agreement, the new president, membership of NATO, COVID, the Bulgarian veto, and of course the impact of Putin's invasion on Ukraine, the impact on the Western Balkans as a whole and the wide world. So really that explains why it's taken so long for this book to come together. But I would say this is probably the most edited book that's been produced in recent times, because of course we've asked our authors to constantly update their work, and thank you for your patience in that. And we ourselves are constantly editing. I think the book does hold together, although there are different views one of the things we've done is that by providing quite a substantial introduction, and I think the conclusionary essay, which I think was one of our great achievements, plus the extended and detailed timeline so that non-experts on Macedonia can actually check out events and the nature of events as they unfold. I think that makes this a really useful book. And the aim really is, of course, that this will open up Macedonia to the wider world, to academics, to students, and to the educated public as a whole. I hope that will happen. The only problem at the moment is the price, but Ivan has told me that there are various possibilities of getting cheaper editions and that it will come into a paperback edition and be available electronically soon, which will mean there'll be a wider readership. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to do is thank the various people that have produced this book. Do I have much time for these? To go to these?
Just a couple of minutes.
A couple of minutes. Gosh, a lot of things to say. Well, I'd like all of the people that were involved in the actual process of book production. I'd like to thank them. And amongst them, of course, are first of all, I'd like to thank Tomi Vasic for his design of the map that appears in the introduction. This is a really lovely map, and that was very, very helpful. I'd also like to thank Demian, I can't see him, oh, he's over there, yeah. Demian Anatoly Golubov, who produced great work in producing an index book. And I've been working with Demian over the years, because of course the other thing is he achieved his MA thesis last year, which came out with a distinction. It's an absolutely excellent quality on British Macedonian relations, and it is worthy of application. Congratulations to him. Other people I must thank, of course, are our editor, Palgrave, and the Fidelitello, who has been very helpful in bringing this book to production, and I'm sure she's somebody that we can work with in the future, as indeed Ivan has worked with on another book called Other people I must mention, Reggie, Ruth Boyan, and Andy Kiyaro, the final problems in concluding stages of bringing the book to production. And also to my dear old friend in England, Professor Martin Brady, also the School of Islamic Studies. He was actually the head of history there, but we were both students there at the age of 18. Martin's always been behind me, and he gave us a great deal of support at the end. Apart from that, I want to thank Stevo, and I must say, Stevo, that your book on Macedonia's foreign policy between 1991 and 2011 was for me a great stimulus in coming to understand better Macedonia's history. And I just hope the day will come when we will be able to perhaps bring it more up to date, and I'll be very happy to help you edit it in the future.
You would like to cut off our career? After the second term.
So we joined the year and he joined after the second.
Otherwise, I want to thank all of the research, Jigas Dodovski, Alain Bangalore, Marjan Bojadziev, Marija and Nena Markovic, David Reed, Marina and Deva, Dodovski, Loretta Georgievska, sorry about that. And I think that's it. My final words, heartfelt thanks go to my long-suffering colleague and co-editor, Professor Stevo Pendarovski. We got to know each other indirectly through Professor David Norris from the University of Nottingham when we were finishing your PhD. And Ivan contributed a chapter to my second book, I believe, which was got the name now, after Yugoslavia. And his chapter was on Macedonian identity politics as a theatre. Later in May 2012, Ivan invited me to Skopje for the first time. And over the past 12 years, we've worked on many projects together, producing a raft of publications on the theme of European integration, and examining theses, and teaching both at the University of Vrshkova and at the University of Vladimir. And of course, there was our collaboration with ENTAN, the European Non-Territorial Autonomy Network. But over the years, we've gone from being just colleagues to being good colleagues, to becoming good friends, to becoming very good friends. I'm delighted to say our families have spent many happy holidays together in Skopje and Palgrave, and talking about opening up tourism. And the last point, I don't know where I put the book now, it's over there, but if you look at the book, the cover is a photograph taken of Ivan at Tsar Samuel's fortress in Ohrid, overlooking Lake Ohrid, which we visited with my son. And is Yakov here? I don't know.
He's somewhere here.
And we have a lovely one. So, thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the support. Thank you everybody here. Thank you all the people from the UACS for making this event possible. Thank you, dear guests, for coming. Blago,
Thank you, Robert, so much. Yes, we have gathered in the Museum of Macedonian Struggle for Independence to promote a book dedicated to the recent political and cultural history of the country. Hence, it might seem most pertinent to finish this evening with a short musical recital by two prominent names: Vladimir Kostov, top violinist and concert master of the National Philharmonic Orchestra, and Marija Vrshkova, professor of piano at the Music Academy in Skopje. This evening they will perform for us two exquisite pieces by two exceptional Macedonian composers. First, we will hear the suite for violin and piano, opus 28, by Tomislav Dodovski. And second, the composition entitled Macedonian Capriccio, and number 1 by Dragan Shublevski. Let us enjoy. Bravo, Vladimir and Marija, thank you so much. Okay, having come to the end of our event, please allow me to thank all of you who attended in such a great number. I express my gratitude to Ambassador Leroy and to Professor Hudson for coming to Skopje for this special occasion. And my special thanks go to a special person who made this promotion possible, our Vice Rector, Venera Curli. I would also like to thank Dimcha Misewski and the entire UACS networking and communication team who helped with the organization of this event. Please be invited to a wine tasting session as a way of finishing this wonderful evening. Thank you and goodbye.